session. I think we'll have staff brief the committee on the bills up for executive session and potential amendments.
Chair Mullet, members of the committee, for the record, Clint McCarthy, staff to the committee. There are 7 bills on the agenda for executive session today. The first bill is 5725. That is the ECEAP bill that would remove the tagline, this tourism tagline, and deciding on that from the responsibilities of the ECEAP committee. The second bill is 5810 concerning insurance regulation. Kelly, do you want to speak to it?
You heard this last week. It establishes that legal service contractors are not insurers and legal service plans are not insurance. There is a proposed substitute offered by Senator Mullet, makes a change to the title, narrowing it to an act relating to exempting certain prepaid services from insurance regulation.
Okay. Then you have Senate Joint Memorial 8006. This is Senator Hasagawa's joint memorial to create asking Congress to create a national infrastructure bank. There are no amendments to this bill. And then Kelly, 5515. Oh, I'm sorry, that's me. I apologize. This is Senator Dozier's bill that we heard in committee last week that would encourage economic growth by providing the B&O tax credit for new employment positions in the hospitality industry in certain counties. There is an amendment, proposed sub on this bill. As we heard in committee, it would add the breweries, wineries, and distilleries as part of the hospitality industry. In addition to that, there are some Department of Revenue concerns that are addressed in the newest version of this sub, including changing the effective date to October 1st, 2022. It also clarifies some of the definitions by pointing to existing definitions and statutes for things like accommodation services and hospitality industry to normalize definitions. And then, I'm sorry, Kelly, here, 5760.
Yes, 5760, you heard this last Tuesday. As a reminder, it increases the amount of B&O tax credits an entity can take per year from $750,000 to $1 million, increases the total amount of B&O tax credits taken annually to $20 million, increases the membership of the board of directors on the motion picture competitiveness program, and then makes changes to annual reporting requirements. There is a proposed substitute in front of you offered by Senator Mullet. It establishes a goal of at least 20% of the financial assistance provided by the program to be located or filmed in rural communities. The second change in this proposed substitute, it establishes a 10% enhancement award on a rural community production state investment. So most people that qualify or receive financial assistance, they can get up to 30%. This adds an additional 10% for those projects that are located in rural communities. It defines a rural community as a rural county or an area that is not delineated as an urbanized area by the U.S. Census Bureau, or an area within a non-rural county that would otherwise be considered rural by the Department of Commerce through rural. And then the proposed substitute requires the board through Commerce to submit an annual report by December 31st with certain information regarding their awards and the progress towards the goal of 20% of the financial assistance provided by the program going towards projects in rural counties. There are 4 amendments to this proposed substitute. I'll go in order in the EBB. The first, C1, offered by Senator Hasagawa, requires members of the board to comply with the Ethics in Public Service Act. C2, offered by Senator Dozier, allows money received by the program to be used for developing resources to facilitate filming in rural communities. C3, also offered by Senator Dozier, makes a change from an or to an and, so that money from the program may go to better supporting people from marginalized and rural communities rather than marginalized or rural communities. And the final amendment to the proposed substitute offered by Senator Hasagawa requires $3 million of that $20 million funding assistance awarded by the Motion Picture Competitiveness Program be for small productions, and small productions are defined as a production with a total, state investment of less than $3 million. After approval, the program must hold on to a small productions approved funding while the rest of their financing is secured if they do not have it already. And if that small production cannot find the rest of the funding assistance, that money then goes back to the program to give to another approved applicant. With that, that's it for 57.
Okay, and then Senate Bill 5541 is exempting newspapers from the B&O tax. There's no amendments at this time on that particular bill. And then Senate Bill 5770, providing Washington State Convention economy grants. This was the agency request legislation of the Secretary of State. This bill created the $5 million grant program for convention type businesses. And there is a proposed sub on this that removes the $5 million appropriation that was in the underlying bill. And it puts in its place language that says that it's the legislature's intention to fund it at $5 million through a combination of state, federal money. And then it also provides a list of examples of conventions in the bill as well, that it's not limited to those conventions. They're just examples of conventions. So with that, we'll take any questions you have about the amendments at this time.
Okay, are there any questions for staff? And I think I'm going to speak really briefly on the newspaper one. The short answer is the newspaper one does not have the votes. It has currently 2 votes on the committee out of 7 members. I'm obviously one of those votes. But so at this point, I am convinced from the JLARC study that the state's not doing enough to help newspapers. Hopefully this has started that conversation. I strongly believe that we should be doing more to help newspapers. I thought this bill was a good idea for that, but we're going to pull that from executive session for lack of votes at this time, so nobody has to worry about discussing that in caucus. And since we have Senator Warnick and Senator Fortunato here, why don't we briefly go back into public hearing before we go to our separate caucus discussion so they can give us comments on their upcoming bills, and then we'll go into executive session. So let's first, I think we have property tax exemption, Senate Bill 5802, and that's going to be Senator Fortunato, but we'll have a quick summary from staff.
Senator, let me get Jeff and Alia available really quick. I thought we were going into executive session, so I apologize for that.
Oh, wow, Alia just magically appeared. Alia
I'm
Kennedy.
here.
Go ahead.
All right. Good morning, Alia Kennedy, staff to the Ways and Means Committee. The bill before you is Senate Bill 5802, which makes changes to the tax relief programs for senior citizens and disabled persons. By way of background, senior citizens, persons retired due to disability, and veterans are entitled to partial property tax relief on their principal residence. The level of exemption varies based on the participant's income threshold. In addition, individuals 60 years or older have the option to defer property taxes if their combined disposable income is the greater of $45,000 or 75% of the county median income. Taxes that are deferred become a lien against the property and accrue interest at 5% per year. The Department of Revenue must adjust the qualifying income thresholds for these programs every 5 years to reflect the most recent county median income data provided by the Office of Financial Management. Current income thresholds were established in 2019 and will next be adjusted again in on March 1st, 2024. The bill before you increases each of the base income thresholds for the senior citizen and disabled persons property tax exemption and deferral programs by $30,000. That means a person can qualify for the property tax exemption with a household income at or below $70,000 rather than $40,000. In addition, the maximum income for the tax deferral program is changed from $45,000 to $75,000. Income eligibility by way of using a percentage of the county median income is suspended for taxes levied for collection in 2023. The bill also requires income thresholds be adjusted by county median income on March 1st of 2022 rather than March 1st of 2024. And last, the interest rate on deferred taxes is reduced from 5% to 2%. If fiscal note is available, there is no impact to state revenue because exempted properties will be a shift to taxpayers rather than a reduction in revenue. There are administrative costs for the Department of Revenue at about $915,000 this biennium and $1.8 million ongoing. The majority of this is reimbursements to counties for deferred taxes, as well as some additional staffing costs. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Senator Frock has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alia, can you remind me or remind the committee or advise us what our recent legislation in this area was in terms of raising thresholds on these exemptions, if at all?
Yes. So a few years ago, there was legislation that prior to that, there were base income thresholds set in statute. So anyone in the state had to meet either the minimum was 30,000 up to 40,000. That was changed to where those base income thresholds for a county remained, except for it was the greater of the base income threshold in statute or a percentage of that county median income. And the percentage varies based on the level of tax exemption that the person qualifies for.
Okay, and so that's the current law as of today?
Correct.
And when did we make that change? Do you
I
recall?
believe it was 2019. It was either 2018 or 2019.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions for staff? All right, Senator Fortunato.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Part of my problem with this property tax exemption is you'll notice that she referred to household income. Well, if you're a retired couple and you're living together, your household income usually is higher than you would qualify for any property tax reduction. So you're not getting that property tax reduction at all, because if you're making as a couple, you're making $40,000. That's poverty level. I mean, you're going to the food bank to get food. So it doesn't really hit a larger portion of those retired seniors on fixed income. So if we keep that household income, if we made an individual income, the highest individual income, that would be something that would help. But in lieu of that, we simply raise the household income to a reasonable amount of money that a couple can live on. In addition to that, if you decide to defer your taxes, mortgage interest rates are less than what the state is charging on the deferred tax deferral. They're charging 5%. Right now, that's a high, that was extremely high mortgage interest rate. And so by reducing it to 2%, that will help offset that large hit, because this is a deferral. They're going to have to pay the tax. It's just you're charging this, right now, a pretty high interest rate. So by reducing that, that will help minimize the impact when they actually do have to pay the tax. So, I mean, theoretically, you could say this is just a minor technical change. So a good little bill with just a little tweak, a minor technical change, no problem. And just, you can exec it out today, Mr. Chairman. I would not stop you, because now you have a hole in the schedule because you pulled your other bill. So. Are
there any questions for Senator Fortunato? Senator Fortunato, we need to connect on your other bill too. So we have your lithium bill. So text or call me today, because we've been trying to work on that one. So we can come up with a good plan. Are there any questions for Senator Fortunato on this bill? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I look forward to you executing it out today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so now we have Senator Warnick's bill, which is Senate Bill 5849. Clint, do we have, oh, there we go. Alia Kennedy is back. I like it.
Again, Alia Kennedy, staff to the Ways and Means Committee. The bill before you is Senate Bill 5849, which modifies several tax preferences. By way of background, there are a number of tax preferences for the purpose of increasing jobs and encouraging economic development. The bill before you relates to several of these tax preferences, including the targeted urban area property tax exemption, which allows cities to authorize a 10-year local property tax exemption for new industrial or manufacturing facilities in designated areas. Any facility claiming a tax exemption must meet certain job creation and wage requirements. Additionally, facilities may only be built on land that is zoned for industrial or manufacturing use as of December 31st, 2014. Next, the tax deferrals for investment projects in rural counties program is also implicated in this bill. That program provides or had provided that businesses located in economic distressed areas do not pay sales or use taxes on the construction, expansion, or renovation of certain facilities or the machinery and equipment for those facilities. The preference applies to two types of economic distressed areas: high unemployment counties designated by the Employment Security Department based on reoccurring above average unemployment rates, and community empowerment zones designated by the Department of Commerce. This program expired July 1st, 2020. And last, manufacturers of solar energy systems are subject to a reduced business and occupation tax rate of 0.275%. Without the preference, these manufacturers would pay a B&O rate of 0.484%. The reduced tax rate expires July 1st, 2027. The bill before you makes the following changes for purposes of the targeted urban area property tax exemption. The requirement that new construction or industrial or manufacturing facilities be on land zoned for industrial or manufacturing use as of December 31st, 2024 is removed. The tax deferral for investment projects in rural counties program is reinstated. DOR must begin accepting applications for the sales and use tax deferral for qualifying businesses that invest in facilities, machinery, or equipment in certain distressed areas. The sales and use tax deferral program expires July 1st, 2032. And last, the expiration date for the reduced business and occupation tax rate for solar energy and silicon product manufacturers is extended from July 1st, 2027 to July 1st, 2032. If fiscal note is available, the bill reduces state revenue by about 1.8 million this biennium and about 5 million each biennium thereafter. There are also general fund expenditures of 153,000 this biennium and 37,000 in subsequent biennium. This covers expenses related to the JLARC review and Department of Revenue administrative costs. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for staff? Thank you, Alia. Senator Warnick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for the record, I'm Senator Judy Warnick. I represent the 13th Legislative District, which includes a good portion of Grant County. This bill was brought to me by people from Grant County, from the Economic Development Council, the Port of Moses Lake, and from a company, REC Silicone, which has been struggling somewhat lately because of different components of what's happening with the silicone and the solar industry. This bill should help bring more manufacturers that would help out with REC. And I noticed that they are going to be testifying, so they can fill you in on that. But you know, it's an important piece to bringing jobs. And when Alia so aptly described this bill, she mentioned jobs as part of the component of bringing this bill. If you're looking at only at the fiscal impact statement, the loss of revenue to the state, please don't look just at that. The increased revenue, the increased jobs, the increased business that's brought to the state will more than make up for that. And I just think that this is something that will be important for not only my area, but for the state in general, because solar is where we're going. Solar energy seems to be where we're going now. So I'd be glad to try to answer any questions, but I know there'll be other people who are testifying that know this better than I. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing this bill today.
Are there any questions for Senator Warnick? Oh, you're off the hook easy. Excellent. Good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we're going to go back into executive session. Senator Dozier, we want to say 10 minutes, or what's your thoughts, or do you just want to text me when you guys are ready?
Yeah, let me text you, Senator Mullet. I think maybe we should be able to get through there. We just have a couple of things I'd like to discuss a little bit more, but most of it should be okay. I'll let you know if we're gonna go beyond 10.
Okay, so we'll plan to be back some point between 8:25 and 8:30, just for members of the viewing public, and we will now go into caucus. Thank you. We will come back into executive session out of caucus, and Can we please have Senate Bill 5725 before us? This is the tourism slogan bill.
Mr. Chair, I move that the bill receive a due pass recommendation and be moved to the Rules Committee.
Is there any discussion? Not seeing any. Can staff please call the roll?
A quick thing for staff. I need to be able to share. Oh, I can't share the screen. Okay, sorry. Here. This is for 5725. Senator Mullet.
Aye.
Senator Hasegawa.
Aye.
Senator Dozier.
Aye.
Senator Brown.
Aye.
Senator Frocht. Senator Lovick.
Lovick votes aye.
Senator Wilson Linda.
Aye.
Senator Frocht.
Oh. Has Senator Frock been lost in cyberspace?
No, I thought I said aye, but my mute was on. I apologize. I vote aye.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Chair Mullet, I have 7 votes for, 0 against.
Does any member wish to change their vote? Not seeing any. With your vote, this bill is passed and will be sent to the Rules Committee. Can we please have Senate Bill 5810 before us? There's a proposed substitute A, which is now before us.
Mr. Chair, I move adoption of the proposed substitute.
This is just gonna be a verbal vote. All members, please unmute yourself. Is there any discussion on the proposed substitute? Not seeing any. All those in favor of adopting the proposed substitute, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The proposed substitute is adopted. Senator Hasegawa.
Mr. Chair, I move that the proposed substitute receive a due pass recommendation and be sent to the Rules Committee.
Is there any discussion? Not seeing any. Can staff please call the roll?
Senator Mullet.
Votes aye.
Senator Hasegawa.
Aye.
Senator Dozier.
Aye.
Senator Brown.
Aye.
Senator Frocht.
Aye.
Senator Lovick.
Lovick votes aye.
Senator Wilson.
Aye.
7 votes for, 0 against.
Does any member wish to change your vote? Okay, not seeing any. With your vote, this bill is passed and will be sent to the Rules Committee. Can we please have Senate Joint Memorial 8006 before us?
Mr. Chair, I move that the bill receive a due pass recommendation and be sent to the Rules Committee.
Is there any discussion? Okay, not seeing any. Staff, can you please call the roll? Thanks, Clint.
Senator Mullet.
Votes aye.
Senator Hasegawa.
Aye.
Senator Dozier.
Votes nay.
Senator Brown.
No.
Senator Frocht.
Aye.
Senator Lovick.
Aye.
Senator Wilson.
Nay.
Chair Mullet, 4 votes for, 3 votes do not pass.
All right, does any member wish to change their vote? Not any. With your vote, this bill is passed and will be sent to the Rules Committee. Can we please have Senate Bill 5515 before us? There is a proposed substitute B, which is now before us.
Mr. Chair, I move adoption of the proposed substitute.
Is there any discussion on the proposed substitute? Okay, not saying any. All those, please unmute yourself. This is going to be a verbal vote on it. Senator Frock.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Do we, I'm sorry, which bill are we? Oh, we're on 5515. I'm sorry.
Yes, we're on Senator Dozier's hospitality.
Got it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I actually, well, can I say something on passage?
Yes.
Sure.
Or do you want to defer your comments?
I'll wait. Let's adopt the substitute, and then I'll make a brief comment.
Okay. So this is a verbal vote to adopt the proposed substitute on Senator Dozier's bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The proposed substitute is adopted. Senator Hasegawa.
Mr. Chair, I move that the proposed substitute receive a due pass recommendation be sent to the Ways and Means Committee.
All right, it has been moved, and Senator Frocht. Now, this is time for discussion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the ranking member for bringing this bill forward. I'm voting in favor of the bill, and I just wanted to point out that I think the type of measure that Senator Dozier is putting forward is sort of exactly what we had envisioned when we did our, if it seems so long ago, but we had a very significant group of us, including Senator Short and others. I can't remember if anybody on this committee was on the committee. Our committee for economic recovery coming out of the pandemic, and one of our recommendations in that report, it's actually quite a good report, it was fully bipartisan, was that we need to take specific steps to reinvigorate the hospitality sector that had been so hurt by the pandemic. And I think in that light, I normally may not have been in favor of a bill like what Senator Dozier is proposing here. I think, but given where we are, it makes sense to me to offer some assistance. We'll have to see what the Ways and Means Committee wants to do with it, if they think it should be a permanent or a more limited credit. But I think in that spirit, it makes sense, and that's why I'm going to support it. And I appreciate the work and bringing it forward.
Thank you, Senator Brock. I appreciate that.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, thank you very. Oh, Senator Hasegawa.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I agree with what Senator Frocht is saying. On the other hand, it's hard for me to continue to carve out more tax breaks, which puts a further burden on those who are remaining that still have to pay the tax. And until we can have a real conversation about progressive tax reform and limiting the carve-outs that we keep creating, I'm going to be a no on this.
All right. Any other comments or discussion? Okay. Clint, can you please call the roll?
Senator Mullet.
Votes aye.
Senator Hasegawa.
No.
Senator Dozier.
Aye.
Senator Brown.
Aye.
Senator Frocht.
Aye.
Senator Lovick.
Lovick votes aye.
Senator Wilson.
Aye.
Chair Mullet, 6 votes for, 1 vote against.
Any member wish to change their vote? Okay, not seeing any. With your vote, this bill is passed and will be sent to the Ways and Means Committee. Okay, can we please have Senate Bill 5760 before us? There is a proposed substitute C, which is now before us, and there will also be amendments to the proposed substitute.
Mr. Chair, I move adoption of the amendment C1 to the substitute.
Is that right? Oh, is that right? I'm assuming it's right because they've given me a list of how to do everything. So we're doing the amendments to the proposed substitute and then verbally adopting the proposed substitute after that. Okay. I should know all this stuff.
Perfect and strike.
Perfect and strike. I've learned that in my rules of order days back in 2012. Okay, I guess, well, Senator Hasegawa, do you want to speak to your amendment?
This is the amendment that just it's
Ethics Commission.
Yeah. To me, it's one of those things that should just apply across the board to government agencies, should apply to comply with ethics rules, and appreciate your consideration.
All right. The chair is encouraging a yes vote on this amendment. Is there any other discussion? This is going to be a verbal vote to adopt Amendment 1 by Senator Hasegawa. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Okay, Amendment C1 is adopted. Senator Dozier, you like to move adoption of Amendment C2, your amendment?
Thank you, Chair Mullet. I move adoption of the amendment C2 to the proposed substitute.
Is there any discussion? Senator Dozier, do you want to explain
It basically just allows money received by the Motion Picture Competitiveness Program to be used for developing resources to facilitate filming in rural communities.
Okay. The chair is also encouraging a yes vote on this amendment. Senator Short is a fellow resident on the 4th floor of the Ledge Building. I know she also encourages us to adopt this amendment. I think she feels it'll help build the ecosystem in some of the rural communities so they can, do a better job of building up, film industry in their backyard. Any other discussion? This is once again a verbal vote to adopt Amendment C2 by Senator Dozier. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Amendment C2 is adopted. So we now go to Senator Dozier. Would you like to move adoption of Amendment C3?
Thank you. I move adoption of the Amendment C3 to the proposed substitute. And
Senator
with it, okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry
Go
about
ahead,
that.
Senator.
And what this does, it basically just changes one word on page 5, line 30. After marginalized, we'll strike or and insert and. So the effect is it establishes that money received by the Motion Picture Competitiveness Program may go to better supporting people from marginalized and rural communities rather than marginalized or rural communities.
Okay, and the chair is actually recommending, I regret to say, a no vote on Senator Dozier's amendment. I did like the original language in the bill, which provided flexibility so they could do both. They could support rural communities and marginalized communities. Obviously, there's a lot of marginalized communities in non-rural areas that I think will benefit from the current language in the underlying bill. So at this point, I would be encouraging a no vote. Once again, this is going to be a verbal vote on the adoption of Amendment C3. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, that amendment fails and is not adopted. We will now move on to Amendment C4. Senator Hasagawa, do you want to move adoption of Amendment C4?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move adoption of Amendment C4.
Senator Hasagawa, do you want to speak to your amendment?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment is designed to try and help build infrastructure for the future for the industry. The way the program is currently set up, big productions have the advantage in applying for the tax credit, and small productions, as defined in this bill, this amendment, below $3 million of total budget, really have a difficult time. In fact, they never seem to be able to qualify for the credit for a couple of different reasons. One of the problems is that there used to be just one application window per year, and it's very difficult for small productions who are trying to cobble together their financing to have their full amount, which is one of the requirements to apply, to have their full funding package put together. So this amendment sets aside $3 million of the 20 million. Maybe we can address this in ways to up the total amount so that it's not taking away from the original 20 million. But that being said, it sets aside $3 million of the appropriated amount to be used for small productions to apply, and it gives them the additional ability to then, once they apply for the credit, they don't need to have the full funding put together when they apply, as is the current requirement. They can then take the credit and shop it around to potential funders to be able to line up their full funding. And if they cannot do that within 9 months, then that money, that credit that they were conditional credit they were allowed will go back into the main pool. So this is a way to increase the ability for small productions, which is where we really have to grow our industry from. I know that big productions do bring money to the area that supports local infrastructure, but there's a whole small infrastructure of camera operators, grips, IATSE, Teamsters, you name it, that have disappeared because there's not enough big productions coming in. Hopefully this will help support the small productions, and I very much appreciate your consideration for this amendment.
Senator Dozier.
Thank you, Chair Mullet. I really appreciate, the spirit in which this amendment is moving forward with the small production companies, but carving out those dollars out of the amount. I'm not comfortable with doing that. I think Senator Hasagawa made the comment to possibly add, to make the other 20 million available and have the 3. So I probably will be a no on this amendment, to let you know.
Okay. Okay, this is going to be a verbal vote to adopt Amendment C4 by Senator Hasagawa. The chair is encouraging a yes vote on this. I thought Senator Hasagawa put in good work. His heart was in the right place on this. And as we've heard, I think from Senator Frog, it's something we will probably have to revisit in Ways and Means. But I am encouraging a yes vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay.
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 Okay, with that, the amendment is adopted. And I will just say, with Senator Wilson being the ranking member on Ways and Means, let's try to connect on this. I would love to get on the same page so we have more of a unified front before we start discussing the bill in ways. So let's just make a note for both of us. We will try to revisit this so we can get alignment before we go in front of that committee. Okay, so at this point on this bill, amendments 1, 2, and 4 have been approved and are now part of the proposed substitute. Senator Hasagawa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the adopted amendments be rolled into a new proposed substitute, and that new proposed substitute receive a do-pass recommendation and be sent to the Ways and Means Committee.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Frog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to just commend your leadership and also the committee members, Senator Dozier, Senator Hasagawa, Senator Short, not on our committee, Senator Wellman, for their work on this piece of legislation. You had a work session on the film tax incentive. I think it was in the fall, and we really had a lot of information about how we have really grown uncompetitive with certainly with British Columbia, which I'm not sure we're ever going to get to what they're doing, but vis-a-vis our sister states. And I really believe that this is one of the most important economic development bills that we've had in recent years in making us more competitive and bringing our creative economy into alignment with at least parity with those around the country. And so I'm really excited for this bill. I hope we can work together and have a strong vote out of this committee. But then as we move it through the Senate, I think there'll be bipartisan support. I think the integration of the rural concepts that you put in the bill, Senator Mullet, in your amendment based upon what Shelley Short had proposed, I think is smart. And I think it just shows that this is not something solely for the Puget Sound area, which so many times people associate with the film industry. It's really supposed to be something that we're going to try to expand in the entire state. So I think there's a lot here. Let's pass this and move forward aggressively and with enthusiasm. And I think we'll get it done.
Excellent. Senator Hasagawa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thanks, Senator Frock, for your passionate work behind this whole concept for the industry. Appreciate that. Senator Frock mentioned British Columbia, and it's such a unique. I remember when British Columbia was first developing that, and that was back in the probably 80s, going into the 90s. But the entire federal government created an incentive program that really boosted. You can see how well Toronto's doing as well. And they have a point system where if you hire say a Canadian lead actor, you get points for that. So sometimes you'll see lead actors who are not really the lead actor. The highest paid lead actor needs to be Canadian. So you will not see maybe the marquee actor as actually the highest paid because the highest paid has to be Canadian. So they have those kinds of requirements. I don't know that we can actually get to a point like that, but they've put literally billions of dollars into developing their infrastructure. That would be very difficult for us to compete against, but this is moving the right direction. Another thing is that small and oftentimes minority production companies have had a very difficult time having access to this program. So you may have heard of a movie this past year that came out called The Paper Tigers. Small budget, locally produced, could not line up the financing, could not get access to the credit program. Went to Los Angeles trying to put together a funding package, but actually the funders, proposed funders down there were requiring to replace the Asian actors, which is basically an Asian themed movie, with white people. And because the producers were not willing to do that, it would totally take away from the plot line and the theme. Came back without that funding and ended up crowdfunding basically. And that movie now is being shown on Netflix and has got 5 Rotten Tomatoes, I guess, which is a very highest rating. But that's a locally produced thing that should have had the support of our credit program, which did not. So what we're trying to do is create this opportunity for many more of those small producers to work their way into the business and build their portfolios and the infrastructure to support it. So I appreciate the intent of this bill and support it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I'll make just a brief remark that in my 10 years in the Senate, there was times during Mark Cleary's struggles where I thought we might not renew $3.5 million incentive where it was. And so I think it is a sign of the progress we've made in this space that we're now talking about a bill going from 3.5 to 20 million with bipartisan support. And I will say my acknowledgement is, like, my oldest daughter is interested, I think, in this space. And the reality is, if you're not going to be competitive with the other states, and you raise a kid who's interested in the space, they're going to have to move out of state for their job. So I think we're basically making a move here today that says you can have a kid in the state of Washington who's interested in working in film or TV, and they don't have to move somewhere else in our country for their employment. They can actually stay at home and work here. So I am glad to see that. With that, can staff please call the roll?
Senator Mullet.
Aye.
Senator Hasegawa.
Aye.
Senator Dozier.
Aye.
Senator Brown.
Aye.
Senator Frocht.
Aye.
Okay. Senator Lubbock.
Aye.
Senator Wilson.
Aye.
7 votes for, 0 against, Chair Mullen.
And with your votes, this bill is passed and will be sent to the Ways and Means Committee. And like I said, Senator Wilson, I'm committed to working with you so we can try to get alignment on this final component before Ways. With that, can we please have Senate Bill 5770 before us? There is a proposed substitute D.
Mr. Chair, I move adoption of the proposed substitute.
Is there any discussion? This is our state convention grant program, $5 million of state or federal money. This can be a verbal vote to adopt the proposed substitute. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those
Aye.
opposed, nay. With that, the proposed substitute is adopted. Senator Hasegawa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the proposed substitute receive a due pass recommendation and be sent to the Ways and Means Committee.
Is there any discussion? Not seeing any. Will Clint please call the roll?
Mute. Chair Mullet,
Votes aye.
Senator Hasakawa,
Aye.
Senator Dozier,
Aye.
Senator Brown.
Aye.
Senator Frocht,
Aye.
Senator Lovick,
Lovick votes aye.
Senator Wilson.
Aye.
Chair Mullet, you have 7 votes for, 0 against.
Does any member wish to change their vote? Okay, with your vote, this bill is passed and will be sent to the Ways and Means Committee. And that concludes our executive session. I think that's the longest executive session we've had in this committee during my 10 years on it. So let's go back into the public hearing. We're going to go slightly out of order. Senator Wilson's bill has the most people signed up. So let's start with Senate Bill 5802. Then we'll do Senator Fortunato's bill first, then Senator Warnick's bill 5849, and then we'll use all our remaining time on Senate Bill 5769. And I am looking to see as folks are signed up. So Senate Bill 5802, we have 2 people signed in. They are both con. It's John Wilson, the King County Assessor, and Peter Van Norwick from Clark County. There's John.
Good morning, Senator.
Just for this bill, we will do 2 minutes on this bill since there's only 2 people signed in to testify.
Okay, well, we'll keep it short and to the point. Appreciate, for the record, John Wilson, King County Assessor. We rise today to speak against 5802, concerned about the administrative burden and the impacts on our communities across the state. It is well intended, but we spent a lot of time the last 2 years or last 3 years working to get a significant reform already in place on the senior exemption program. In addition, this year, for the first time, kicks in an extension of the healthcare deductibility, which will have a significant impact and in effect will do what 5802 tries to do anyway, of raising the income threshold. With that, Senator, I defer the rest of my time to my colleague, Mr. Van Norwick.
All right, Peter.
Thank you, Senators. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am Peter Van Norwick, the Clark County Assessor, and I'd like to explain why I oppose Senate Bill 5802 as drafted. First, I would like to remind the Senators the hard work the assessors, the legislature, and the Senators did to create equity and tie the senior exemption to the median household income per county. We all know the cost of living is much higher in our urban counties than our rural counties, and corresponding incomes are much higher. A $50,000 income in King County would be considered a very low income, whereas in Pend Oreille County is above the median income level. The beauty of tying the program to a percent of the county median household income rather than a flat number was it allowed low-income senior homes owners across the state to be able to utilize the low-income senior exemption. In addition, it inflation-proofed the program so that low-income seniors would not be held to a whim of the legislature, picking a number that has greatly varying impacts across the state. Even without this bill being implemented, the NICS adjustment for low-income seniors will have a higher threshold. Why is this? Because the $70,000 proposed is 64% in King County on 2020 median household income. While so only seniors in King County that have a 65% of the median household income would be eligible for the program, seniors bringing in 125% of the median income in Asotin County or 148 in Pend Oreille would be eligible for the program. This is not equitable. Meanwhile, the taxes shifted by this program do not go away. The rest of the tax base picks up their taxes. I think it is hard to explain to a working family in small rural counties that may bring home the median household income while they're picking up the property taxes of their senior neighbors that have a much higher income than they do. The percentage were inserted into the law so there would be equity across the state for both large and small counties, recognizing the difference between counties and to give property relief to low-income seniors. Not seniors in general, but low-income seniors. This bill takes the equity across the state that we worked so hard to achieve and throws it out the window. The equity achieved for seniors in Clark, King, Pierce, and Snohomish County would be taken away. I'm confident that taxpayers in our most populous counties are not interested in paying property taxes of seniors that don't qualify as low income. As an assessor of the tax district I see that would be most impacted by this bill is the fire districts that are close to their $1.50 limit. While I oppose this bill, I would like to propose an alternative that would keep the current methodology intact and help meet the goals I think you're trying to achieve with this bill. This senior exemption program was designed for low-income senior citizens. Under the current structure, there are seniors that the federal government defines as low income, which do not qualify for the program. Conversely, there are also seniors in rural counties that don't meet the definition of low income that remain on the program as we transition off of the prior methodology. The alternative I am proposing is leaving the current dollar figures as is and instead adjusting the percentage in our law to the HUD definitions. HUD definition of low income is 80%, 50% for very low income, and 30% for extremely low income. By making this change, we can achieve the goal of expanding the program and bring our level of property tax relief in line with accepted housing definitions. I hope you will support equity for the low-income seniors and taxpayers in Clark, King, Snohomish, and Pierce County, and amend or reject this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peter. And we have until next week, so I may circle back with you after this hearing this week to maybe think about that proposal. Senator Osgood has a question.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So, Assessor Wilson, good to see you. I was wondering, you were talking about King County is looking to try and move this direction to begin with. I presume that's on raising the income threshold. So I have two questions actually. First is, can you do that without state authority to modify the limits? And the second question I would have is, what is your thoughts about the second part of the bill regarding dropping the interest rates from 5 to 2?
Thank you, Senator. Good to see you again also as well. Under the law as it now exists, the income threshold for each county is indexed by the average median income. That's been a huge help in King County. It took it from a statewide flat $40,000 a year up to $58,423, and it's adjusted regularly once every 5 years by the Department of Revenue. That, in addition, we expect another probably $5,000 to perhaps as much as $10,000 in headroom on that this year because of the addition of expanded medical deductions in the program. We find it's effectively covering a lot of people. Our greatest hope is both that we can get from the county and the state adequate resources to process those applications that are coming in. And as COVID hopefully lightens up, we can continue our outreach in that. In terms of reducing the interest, there is a disparity between the legislation and what the state now charges. We find, though, frankly, that relatively few people use the deferral program that charges the interest. So it does not have a significant impact on our revenue, and it doesn't seem to be a significant deterrent from people getting into the deferral program.
Excellent. Senator Frock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for both Assessor Wilson, Assessor Van Nortwick, either one of you. Is passage of this legislation going to create more confusion in the sense that it would establish another change in the policy and the direction that we're giving both to the assessors, but also to the taxpayers themselves that may want to be taking advantage of of what's available to them, at least under current law? Since we changed this a few years ago.
In my opinion, yes, it will. One of the great challenges we have right now is we're still trying to get everybody on board with how the legislation has changed the economic threshold across the state, county by county. This, I think, will only add to that confusion. And that also creates an administrative burden on us. We got, when we changed the threshold 2 years ago, a 300% increase in the number of applications. And it literally swamped our public information team while we also had to deal with COVID. So I'm fearful that while it sounds great in intent, the reality of it, it will be confusing to the public and create administrative obstacles that frankly will only lead to greater public frustration rather than public hope and help.
Yeah, I'd also mirror what Assessor Wilson just said. You know, when you put it up, especially when you're increasing the amounts that much, you're bringing a lot more people in, which means it's going to be a lot more administrative work, which means even people that are actually low income seniors, they're actually going to get delayed if you try to work through that backlog of actually getting, like I say, is we put those percentages out there because I do think it does need to be adjusted to mirror the federal housing guidelines. And, you know, but it also takes a time we need transition time. We have a lot of people that are going, as Assessor Wilson said, coming in because of the medical, and you need time to catch up when these new changes come. And if you keep doing change on top of change on top of change, it just really burdens and gets our county, you know, behind actually serving the low income seniors that we're trying to help.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Then Peter, I will try to circle back with you later on this week, you know, on your suggestion. With that closes the public hearing on this bill. We will now go to the public hearing on Senate Bill 5849. This is Senator Warnick's tax incentive bill related to solar. We have 4 people signed in to testify. We're going to move the timer from 2 minutes down to 90 seconds, just to leave some time for all the folks signed in on Senator Wilson's bill. But we had Bruce Beckett, Chuck Sutton, Brant Mayo, and Tommy Gans. Bruce, nice to see you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't hear you call me.
You've been called.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Bruce Beckett here on behalf of the Port of Moses Lake. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer just about all of my time to the other witnesses who can explain this project better. But simply put, the port owns and operates the Grant County International Airport. There's a growing aerospace and advanced manufacturing cluster in the region, and we are directly involved with this project, although it would not be on port property or entail port assets. But we do support it because of the it moves us all towards clean energy, grows family wage jobs, and increases opportunities in rural parts of the state. So thank you. I'm going to defer my time.
All right, you just bought Chuck and Brant more time. We'll go to Tommy. Tommy, do you want to buy them more time too?
Good afternoon, Chair Mullet, Ranking Member Dozier, and members of the committee. For the record, my name's Tommy Gantz from the Association of Washington Business, and I will defer a bit of my time to Chuck and Brant. So just really quickly, thank you for the opportunity to support this bill. OFM is currently forecasting a decline in the average annual growth rates in manufacturing, and this bill is an opportunity for more companies to come to the area, which will create jobs as well as provide additional revenue for the state and support rural areas. These tax policies will help the state move toward achieving those goals, so we're here just in support of that today. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, Chuck and Brant, I don't care who goes first, and we'll give you some extra flexibility in your time that Bruce and Tommy have.
Go ahead.
That's your Valentine's Day present, early Valentine's Day.
No, thank you much. Chair Mullet, Ranking Member Dozier, members of the committee. My name is Chuck Sutton. I'm Vice President of Sales for REC Silicon, located in Moses Lake in Grant County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on Senate Bill 5849. About 10 years ago, REC Silicon spent $1.7 billion to build a state-of-the-art polysilicon plant to support the growth of solar power. The business flourished in the beginning, and we had revenue in the hundreds of millions of dollars. REC was one of the largest employers and taxpayers in Grant County at the time. The U.S.-China solar dispute that started under the Obama administration and then carried on through the Trump administration caused REC Silicon to be blocked out of the main market, which was in China. We had to slow down production and start laying off employees. The continued trade disputes between the U.S. and China has further caused REC Silicon to be blocked out of the market, which led to us stopping production in 2019. The U.S. is looking to increase renewable energy installations and developments, and the majority of this comes from overseas markets right now. U.S. manufacturing can be competitive. It just needs a little bit of support at the base that other countries have done. Likewise, other U.S. states can give direct financial support to recruit new businesses, which, as you know, Washington State cannot do. This bill would give opportunity for customers of REC Silicon to build in Washington State, and it'd lead for the opportunity for REC Silicon to restart production, rehire employees. REC Silicon pays above average wages with a full benefit package. In 2018, the average wage in Grant County was $41,000. The average industrial wage was $55,000, and REC was above that. So this bill helps pave the way for clean energy along with high-paying jobs for Washington State, making us competitive on this. We support this bill and encourage the legislation to continue to look for ways to help the economy recover and grow. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Can I ask Chuck, when it came to selling your product in China before the trade dispute, were you having success selling the panels to that market then?
Yeah, we sell the raw material that goes in to make the panels, and yeah, we had success in selling that.
Got it. Okay. Brand.
All right, thank you, Chair Mullet and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on Senate Bill 5849. My name again is Brant Mayo, Executive Director of Grant County Economic Development Council. The Grant County EDC supports Bill 5849 for the additional opportunity it will create for companies to come to our area and help build our clean tech manufacturing cluster. Senate Bill 5849 will aid us in landing a current clean tech manufacturing project that will have a direct employment opportunity of 1,500 workers and an indirect employment of nearly 5,000 workers. The expected annual wage for these positions that we would attract would total $100 million annually on the direct employment and $231 million annually on the indirect employment. These additional jobs in our rural community would generate an estimated $8 million in sales tax revenue that would return to our area, along with over $10 million in property tax revenue dedicated to the hospitals, schools, libraries, mental health systems, et cetera. The project and development of the manufacturing cluster, as you heard from Chuck, will also impact REC and the shutdown. This will also help a lot of our smaller supplementary businesses which supported REC to increase their employment and overall tax base. Also, I'm sure you're aware that landing at a large employee like the project we're working on has a multiplying effect and will bring in several small support businesses along with many other benefits to Grant County and our surrounding areas. Again, we support this bill, and I thank the committee for continuing to look for ways to help the economy recover. Really appreciate the time and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brant. What's the timing of that project? Like, how is it, like if we pass this bill this session, like how does that coordinate with the timing of the bigger project coming in?
Chuck, you want to?
Yeah, it's still under discussion. You know, there's a bill under the Build Back Better at the federal level that is going to drive kind of the whole U.S. But we're looking at this. We actually just had a very large investment from a South Korean company into our company that's looking to do something in the U.S. So we're working through it now. But as mentioned earlier by Senator Warnick, if some of these changes aren't made, we may miss this opportunity.
Okay, excellent. Are there any other questions for Chuck, Brant, Bruce, or Tommy? Okay. I do think this is a good idea. And so for members of the committee, I do plan to exec this bill on Thursday. So if people do have questions or concerns, please come to me today or tomorrow so we can try to get in front of it as early as possible. But thank you very much for being here today. I really appreciate it. With that ends the public hearing on 5849. We're now going to go to the public hearing on 5769. Jeff Mitchell, there he is, right on cue. Look at that. You just say his name. He's like Aladdin. He just comes up. He will give us a staff briefing. Jeff.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jeff Mitchell, staff with Ways and Means, but here today to brief on Senate Bill 5769, which relates to reforming the state tax system by providing tax relief to residents, employees, and employers. The legislation makes 4 major changes to Washington State's tax system. The first significant change would establish a property tax homestead exemption. So beginning in 2024, a homestead exemption becomes available that would exempt the first $250,000 of valuation of each residential parcel from the state property tax. And then beginning in 2025, the $250,000 threshold would be adjusted by inflation. To qualify for the homestead exemption, an applicant would submit an application to the county indicating the applicant is the owner of the property and the property is used as their primary residence. The application has to be submitted prior to June 30th and would apply to taxes levied for collection in the following calendar year. And then a renewal application form would need to be submitted at least once every 6 years. The legislation specifies that the property value removed from the tax rolls for purposes of the homestead exemption will not be shifted to other property owners. Therefore, other property owners will not pay more in state property tax. Because the state constitution requires uniformity in property taxes, which requires uniformity in both tax rates and property valuation for all classes of property, and real estate constitutes one class under the state constitution, the legislation is contingent on the passage of a constitutional amendment embodied in Senate Joint Resolution 8206 that would explicitly authorize a property tax homestead exemption. In terms of the fiscal impact, we don't have a fiscal note for the bill before you today, but roughly the homestead property tax exemption would reduce property taxes by about 1.2 billion per year. The second major change relates to the business and occupation taxation of manufacturing activities in Washington. By way of background, Washington's major business tax is the B&O tax. The B&O rate depends on the specific business activity, and a taxpayer may have more than one B&O tax rate depending on the types of activities conducted by the business. Manufacturing activity is generally subject to a rate of 0.484% multiplied by the gross income of the business. However, a number of manufacturing activities are subject to a preferential rate. In state tax law, processing for hire is a term used to describe manufacturing activity on tangible personal property owned by others. The bill before you today reduces the rates for various manufacturing and processing for hire activities to 0%. In terms of the fiscal impact, again, we don't have the fiscal note for the bill, but B&O tax collections would be reduced very roughly by about 250 million to 300 million per year. The third major change relates to the Washington capital gains tax. By way of background, the Washington capital gains tax was enacted in the 2021 legislative session and went into effect on January 1st of this year. The first tax collections will be in 2023. The tax rate equals 7% multiplied by an individual's Washington capital gains. The first 250,000 of capital gains are excluded from the state capital gains tax. A number of other exemptions and deductions apply. The first 500 million of state capital gains tax revenues received each year will be deposited into the State Education Legacy Trust account, and the remainder deposited into the Common School Construction account. The bill before you today repeals the Washington capital gains tax retroactively to January 1 of this year, as well as prospectively. In terms of the fiscal impact, this change would reduce estimated capital gains revenues annually by very roughly 600 million per year, looking at the average of the first 5 years of impacts of a similar proposal. And then lastly, the fourth major change relates to the long-term services and supports trust program. By way of background, in 2019, the legislature established the Long-Term Services and Supports Trust Program, which provides up to $36,500 in lifetime benefits plus adjustments for inflation for eligible beneficiaries to apply to the cost of their long-term care. The trust program is funded through a 0.58% premium assessment on an employee's wages. The premium assessment took effect January 1 of this year, and eligible beneficiaries may begin receiving benefits on January 1 of 2025. The bill before you today would repeal the program, including a retroactive repeal of the premium assessment back to January 1 of this year. In terms of the fiscal impact, very roughly, the reduction in premium assessments would be roughly 1.3 billion per year over the next couple of years. With that, I would be happy to respond to any questions.
Are there any questions for Jeff? Excellent. Thank you, Jeff, for pinch hitting in our committee this morning. Greatly appreciate it. Senator Wilson, do you want to speak to your bill?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for the record, I am Senator Linda Wilson. I am from the 17th Legislative District. So, yeah, we have about a little over $10 billion of revenue available to us this year. And I think that now, if of all time, being in such good shape with the budget, it is the opportunity for us to be able to give back to our taxpayers. I think that we know that in the past 10 years, the state budget has nearly doubled in growth and significantly outpaced average wage growth for residents. And in light of inflation approaching about a 40-year high, and tax relief is really warranted and it's necessary. I think that now is the time. And then as of the latest comparative tax burden report produced by the Department of Revenue, Washingtonians on a per capita basis have a higher state and local tax burden than the national average. So we rank 12th highest in the country in tax burden and pay over about $750 a year more than the national average. I kind of wanted to individually go through just why I wanted to do the tax exemptions. The property tax exemption is a progressive tax exemption for the homeowner of someone that owns a home that's worth $250,000. They would get full state property tax relief. And a homeowner that has their home is valued at $1 million would get a 25% tax relief. So what a great opportunity to give back to the people at this time. Eliminating the B&O for manufacturers is, well, we actually did that in a bill in the budget 2017, but it was vetoed. But since the turn of the century, the sector has lost over about 77,000 good family wage jobs, and it's a sector that's been hurt pretty hard. And being that we're the most trade dependent state in the nation, I think that we need to think about producing our own product. I mean, if the supply line issue doesn't teach us anything else, it tells us how important it is to be able to have our state and our country to produce our own products. And then creating a better tax environment will encourage businesses to grow and entice them to come to Washington State and increase our competitiveness. It does eliminate the capital gains income tax. With the passage of that last year, it did set up the structure for easily for a full-blown income tax. It could be passed with a simple majority vote. The voters have said about 11 times now that, and there's court precedent over a course of about 85 years that this is an income tax, and the voters have said no many times. So I think also, again, repealing this will make us more competitive as a state, and we won't be competing with states where other states like Florida that doesn't have an income tax, and retirees and businesses would like to come here. And then, of course, of the long-term payroll tax, we have a few other bills out there that would like to eliminate it. I think it's a program that the public, and I believe the public is very, very concerned about. They're forced to pay into it. They can't ever opt out of it. And I think that we can do better. We should probably repeal this and do better with the program itself, and hopefully work with the private sector to build a better program for those that need it. So that is my appeal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Wilson. We're going to do a 60-second timer. There's 23 people signed in, and we have 27 minutes left in this committee hearing. We're going to start off with, there's 3 folks signed in support of Senator Wilson's bill, and that's Tommy Gantz, Val Mullen, and Rennie Storm. And why don't we have them go first? Then we'll try to do panels of 3. After these folks, we're going to go back up to the top in the order in which people signed in, and we'll go from there. Oh, Rennie is not present. I see that. Tommy, you can go ahead and start.
Chair Mullet, Ranking Member Dozier, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Tommy Gantz from the Association of Washington Business. We signed in initially as other, but if possible, would like to change our position to support. It sounds like that was reflected. We appreciate Section 105 that makes the homestead exemption contingent on a constitutional amendment. We would also support having an amendment require a 2/3 vote to raise taxes in the future. We support reducing the B&O tax rate on manufacturing activities to 0% and appreciate the sponsor including this in the bill. She spoke to how we're the most trade-driven state, so I'll skip over some of my testimony in the interest of time. I will submit that in writing, but we do appreciate that. With the budget outlook and revenue forecast, there is no justification for any operating tax increases, including the capital gains tax. We support and appreciate the inclusion of this repeal. And changes to establishing legislation of the state's long-term care program over the last 2 legislative sessions have created a program that is unclear, insolvent, and does not address the actual long-term care needs of all Washington state residents. Repealing this program would allow any consideration of how the state adequately, effectively addresses this issue by looking at systematic issues such as workforce, comprehensive definition of long-term care, and insurance regulations. All of these issues impact the cost of the program to the state and its critical workforce. Thank you so much for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Val.
Good morning. My name is Val Mullen. I'm retired and live in the country near Cedar-Woolley. I'm also a concerned taxpayer and property owner. I'm not being paid by an organization to testify. I am in favor of SB 5769 because I agree it's time for some tax relief for the average citizen. We currently have a $10 billion surplus in this state, despite all of the COVID lockdowns, mandates, and business closures. Businesses have been hit hard. Inflation is at record levels. A jar of mayonnaise that I bought for $4 a few months ago now costs more than $8. Our tax burden is off the charts. This bill will help businesses and citizens who have been hit the hardest in the last 2 years. It'll boost the economy, jobs, and revenue for the state, which helps us all. I ask you to please vote to approve SB 5769. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. It sounds like we're gonna have to add mayo to the CPI index basket. It seems like it's missing. I didn't realize. Okay, we have the next 3 folks on the con side will be Charles Mayer, Carolyn Brotherton, and Emily Parsibach. Let's see. There we go.
Hello.
Charles, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Mullet and members of the committee. My name is Charles Mayer. I'm the co-chair of the Economic and Equity Task Force for the Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility. I'm speaking in strong opposition to SB 5769. Excuse me. I'm a family doctor focused on improving the health of my patients. It does not matter if they're a Republican or a Democrat, what side of the Cascades they live, or the color of their skin. This bill is filled with creating community illness. It will carve out a devastating 1.75 billion chunk from early learning and basic education programs for our kids. It will remove the most equitable change to our tax code in the last 80 years. Saturday night, I spoke with the daughter of Mr. G, an 84-year-old man who's suffering from metastatic cancer and is going through chemotherapy. He needs additional help at home, and she and her frail mother are unable to provide this care.
Charles, please conclude your comments, please. We want to make sure everyone gets a chance to testify, so please wrap up. Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry. I thought it was 60 seconds, and I'll submit this.
That was it. 60 seconds went.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so just in conclusion, I just want to say that she would really benefit from the Washington Cares law. And if we want to truly address the immediate needs of our communities, we must fund, not chip away at the things that actually improve health for our communities. So I urge you to vote against SB 5769. And thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn.
Great. Good morning. My name is Dr. Carolyn Brotherton, here on behalf of the Economic Opportunity Institute, testifying against Senate Bill 5769. In 2020, the state made major cuts to the public sector, like school bus drivers and other K-12 staff. Many small businesses such as childcare centers shut down permanently. And now we're feeling those cuts and the lack of a social safety net, which is the result of decades of austerity and corporate handouts. Due to our for-profit healthcare system, half of Americans carry medical debt. Student loan and other household debt is staggering. Austerity shifts debt to households and leads to stressed out people. Deaths of despair outnumbered COVID deaths in Washington in 2020. It also creates huge drags on our economy. This bill will largely benefit the wealthy who've seen their wealth grow this year. Cutting state revenues will only fuel more underinvestment. Instead of this proven to be broken approach, we should ask the wealthy to pay their fair share, protect the investments in kids' basic education, and more. The state should actually be making big, bold investments in areas like childcare and public education that actually help Washington's people and will meet the needs of this moment. Thank you.
Excellent. Emily, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Chair Mullet, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Emily Parzybach. I'm the Executive Director of Balance Our Tax Code, here testifying today in strong opposition to 5769. Balance Our Tax Code is a coalition of over 80 organizations representing folks who are at the front lines of this pandemic, in-home caregivers, teachers, physicians, food bank workers, healthcare professionals, and housing advocates, to name a few. Our coalition asks that the legislature pass no tax cuts this session that do not directly benefit the low-income people of Washington state who are most suffering right now. Our coalition includes diverse voices with different priorities, but the thing that unites all of us is the understanding that Washington's tax code is upside down and that it's harming our most vulnerable communities. That's why we worked so hard to pass the capital gains tax and the working families tax credit last session. And that's why this session, we're fighting for a tax on extreme wealth and a guaranteed basic income for folks in our community. Senate Bill 5769 comes forward at a time when our communities are still suffering the dual hardship of economic recession and a global pandemic. It's high time we funded the programs and critical investments that allow our community members in Washington to thrive. Please take action to balance our tax code. And again, we're here in strong opposition to this bill and other tax cuts that do not directly benefit low-income communities. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Okay, next we're going to call up Patrick Connor, then Jason Mercier, and then Robert Parker. Oh, Robert is not here, so we will just do Patrick and Jason. There's Patrick Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. NFIB assigned in other for 5769. Well, we believe there's much to commend this bill and appreciate that it does help advance the conversation about meaningful tax reform in our state. We do have some concerns about parts 1 and 2. We do support parts 3 and 4. And given the number of folks that wish to testify, we've just emailed our testimony to you in writing and hope that will be considered for the record.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jason Mercier with the Washington Policy Center. Thank you for holding the hearing today on Senate Bill 5769. I've been monitoring the state's balance sheet for 20 years, and I have never seen a better opportunity for lawmakers to provide broad-based tax relief for Washingtonians. The 21-23 budget is balanced, caseloads are down, and since the legislature adopted the budget, the revenue forecast has increased in ongoing funds $8 billion, $8 billion of revenue growth just since the budget was adopted. And since November, that's another $350 million of more tax collections. Now, whether it's the proposals from Senate Bill 5769 or Senate Bill 5932, the Policy Center has actually been pushing for a sales tax cut to provide that broad-based tax relief. The opportunity is now. The revenues are there. Every other state has been enacting record tax cuts. It's time for Washington to join those and provide that tax relief with inflation increasing the cost of living for Washingtonians. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna try, I think we may try to do 4. This next one's in a block of 4. It's Andy Nicholas, Stephen Blanford, Danielle Rice, and Megan Pirie. There's Andy. All right, go ahead, Andy.
Thank you, Chair Mullet and members of the committee. For the record, I am Andy Nicholas, Senior Fellow with the Washington State Budget and Policy Center. The Budget and Policy Center strongly opposes Senate Bill 5769. We all want to shore up our state's fragile recovery and do so in a way that ensures no communities are left behind. But doing so requires that we expand and strengthen community foundations like schools, early learning and childcare, public health, and other infrastructure. Now, the current state budget makes important progress toward reversing cuts enacted over a decade ago during the last major recession, but too many community needs remain unmet. Some important things to note: that repealing Washington's equitable new wealth tax on extraordinary stock profits would drain $500 million per year in funding for early learning, childcare, and other essential education services. That would be very short-sighted given the enormous and well-documented long-term return on investment in those types of services. The proposed homestead exemption would drain over $1 billion per year from public schools while having no significant impact on the overall regressivity of Washington state and local tax code. And more troublingly, sure.
Please try to summarize things.
Will do. The more troubling thing about the proposed homestead exemption is that it could increase the racial wealth gap, since due to generations of racist housing and banking policies, Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and other residents of color are much less likely to own their own homes and benefit from the program. To summarize, SB 5769 just would deepen and prolong the damage caused by the pandemic and recession, and we urge elected officials to instead look for equitable new sources of revenue to sustain and increase our investments in communities. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Stefan? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry. And you are now almost off mute. There we are.
There I am. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Mullet and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Stefan Blandford, and I have the pleasure as the Executive Director of the Children's Alliance to represent 1.6 million of Washington's children, particularly those furthest from their potential because of race or family income. That's why I'm here to testify in strong opposition to Senate Bill 5769. I've spent a good portion of the last year, last summer and fall, talking to advocates in other states about the historic investments made in Washington during the last legislative session. Investments in early learning and K-12, investments in ensure that our children have a great head start towards the future that they all deserve. Senate Bill 5769 effectively blocks that potential and harms too many of our vulnerable children. It will gut the early learning providers that have been demonstrated as essential to the restart of our economy. And as a former elected school board director, I'm particularly concerned about the impact that it will have in the K-12 space. I've had numerous conversations recently with
please summarize, yeah, please.
With superintendents who tell me of the crises in the behavioral, emotional, and mental health field, and they need support in order to be able to provide services to kids. So we strongly support opposition to 5769. Thank you.
And I go to Danielle, and just, yeah, if you have prepared remarks, I really try to summarize because we have 12 people left in 13 minutes. Danielle, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Danielle Rice. I live in Asotin, Washington, and I urge you to oppose 5769. It is not just older people who need to think about long-term care. At age 30, I went into a doctor's office for a common medical procedure, and I left with a spinal cord injury. I will be a wheelchair user for the rest of my life. In a second, you could be the next one to need long-term care. I've been a caregiver for 15 years, and the majority of workers in Washington state cannot afford private long-term care insurance. 90% of my clients have had to spend down to get onto Medicaid. Yet, this is the broken way that many want to return to and think is okay. Repealing WellCares is not giving back. It is taking away. Tens of thousands of people, including myself, will have no ability to get the long-term care we need, and it will only continue to overburden Medicaid as baby boomers age.
Thank you, Danielle, for sharing your story. I'm sorry. Thank you for sharing. Megan.
Good morning, Chair Mullet and members of the committee. My name is Megan Pirie and I live in the 3rd District in Spokane. I'm testifying today in strong opposition of Senate Bill 5769. I'm a mom to 5 children, 4 adopted through the foster care system, and I work hard every day as a substance use disorder counselor, navigating people into opiate treatment. I also provide for my family on a day-to-day basis, and we give back to the community, volunteering at food banks and registering people to vote and finding housing for formerly incarcerated people. And most importantly, I pay my taxes at a higher rate than the wealthy people, the people that actually profited during the pandemic. And I'm here to remind you today that we cannot come back and make a comeback on the backs of poor people. We need to make sure that the capital gains tax passed last year stays in effect. It was the most equitable change to our tax code in the last 80 years. I'm opposed to this bill because I believe it's time to fund the things our communities need.
Thank you very much. Our next panel is Kathy McCall. Uni, I'm gonna really not do your last name service, Neela Tafia, and then Angela Griffin. Kathy.
Thank you, Chair Mullet, for this opportunity to voice my opposition to 5769, specifically related to the WA Cares program. The WA Cares program will save the state in the first year approximately $70 million. We know that 70% of people have not prepared for long-term care. WA Cares was created because the private market failed. Please oppose 5769. Thank you.
Kathy, you get brevity points. Angela, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Mullet and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Angela Griffin, and I'm a child care provider in the greater Seattle area. I am testifying today in strong opposition of Senate Bill 5769. This bill will take a devastating $1.75 billion away from already underfunded early learning and basic education programs. The capital gains tax passed last year was the most equitable change to our tax code in the last 80 years, and I was so excited to finally see it pass, as it made a promise of $500 million per year for child care and early learning and other educational services. This bill would be a huge blow to working parents, our kids, and communities across Washington. And I know this because I've had a front row seat for many years as a working parent and grandparent who has directly benefited from access to child care. Families need child care to be accessible and affordable, but many providers have been forced to close, and many more of us are at high risk of closure due to the pandemic. And the result will be that families will not be able to find the care they need to return back to work. And for Washington, the recovery of the child care sector must be reinforced in this difficult time, and the capital gains tax provides that reinforcement. So I ask of you that you please do not advance this bill.
Thank you, Angela. Yeah, next we're going to call up Hayan Park. I see Hayan's already here. And then Scarlett To, Jess Gomez, and Elisa Evans. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Mullen, members of the committee. My name is Han Park, and I'm the lobbyist for AFT Washington. We represent about 6,500 members, including faculty from community and technical colleges and pre-K through 12 classified employees. And I'm a proud constituent of the 37th Legislative District. I'm testifying today in strong opposition to SB 5769. Washington State ranks dead last in terms of how fair our tax system is. Here's what we know. We know workers are hurting in Washington State. It's been 2 years into this pandemic and economic hardship. It is urgent that we fully fund our schools. We must ensure quality healthcare for anyone who needs it, because healthcare is a human right, and provide the stability that our working families deserve. We know that there aren't enough bus drivers to get our students to school, and school counselors and mental health supports are barely functional. AFT represents those bus drivers, works closely with those students in schools, and continuously fights for mental health supports for our students. Because student success is faculty success, is community success. We must plan for our future growth, and AFT Washington urges you to vote no on SB 5769 and help those workers that are out there on the front lines that we represent. Thank you.
Thank you. And Scarlett, your little one's making me tired. I kind of want to, it's making me want to take a nap just looking at him. Go ahead.
Waiting for a long time. Okay. Good morning, Chair Mullet and members of the committee. My name is Scarlett To, and I'm a constituent in the 5th District. I'm here today testifying in strong opposition to Senate Bill 5769. Last year, I was placed on the ventilator in the ICU when I was 24 weeks pregnant. I had very little chance of surviving and had to deliver a newborn through an emergency section while in induced coma. After that, I'm not able to take care of my children myself. I need childcare to help me recover faster, while I also work to support my family. Shortly before I was hospitalized, I testified in support of the capital gain tax, where it became to promise of affordable childcare, early learning, and other services to help working moms like me. Senate Bill 5769 would be a huge blow to working parents like me, and especially to the children who are going to need so much support to recover from the pandemic and be successful in the kindergarten and beyond. I urge you to vote no on Senate Bill 5769 to help families like mine who have suffered from COVID, especially my son, Atticus.
Thank you, Scarlett. Atticus looks like he's very healthy and doing well. Congratulations. Jess.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Jess Gomez, and I'm speaking on behalf of Washingtonians for a Responsible Future, a coalition of aging, disability, and caregiver organizations that oppose SB 5769 and the repeal of the WACARES program. We're here in support of WACARES in no small part because it addresses the equity issues and systemic racism embedded in our current system. 46% of all retirees reported that they retired earlier than expected. However, white retirees did so because they could afford to. Black retirees frequently said that they had to due to a health problem or a disability. Additionally, in Washington, 61% of the employed workforce were not covered by a workplace-based retirement plan. The uncovered percentage for Hispanic workers is substantially higher at a stark 79%. In the private insurance market, women pay up to 50% more than men for long-term care insurance.
Summarize. Thank you, Jess. Please.
Repealing the program get us back to where we started, an unjust bias system that works only for the privileged. Please stand with us and vote no on 5769. Thank you.
Thank you. Alyssa.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Evans. I'm a caregiver in Concrete, Washington. I'm a third generation caregiver, and I'm here to testify in opposition of Senate Bill 5769. I firmly believe that every senior should be able to age at home with the help of caregivers, whether they're professional or family. When I hear from some of my clients that their affordable agency for 24-hour care is $20,000 a month, I am absolutely shocked. Living in a rural community makes things more expensive and more complicated. There are very few professional caregivers in Concrete, and so we have families that opt to have their loved ones age in their homes. But that's also extremely expensive, as our local doctor's offices are over 45 minutes away. It makes our groceries expensive, and then our bills, our utility bills are rising. My mom and I have always talked about me taking care of her when her time comes. And when her employer gave her a letter about the Washington Cares program, they suggested opting out and gave her a quote from an insurance company at $500 a month because of her age and her medical history. So we need to protect this program, and please vote no on Bill 5769. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Okay, we have 3 people left to testify. That's Joe Kunzler, Mary Curry, and Mike French. We have 3 minutes. Here we go. Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have family I need to tend to, so I'm going to make this very quick. I meant to sign in UDER, not CON, because I support the homestead exemption. I think that there's a lot of people suffering with property taxes, but to Scarlett To, I absolutely admit the fact your concerns. It's why I'm an UDER. I appreciate what Senator Wilson's trying to do, but I think when our state ferry system is in the crisis that it's in, when we have unmet needs, this is not the time to be talking about permanent tax cuts. This is a time to be talking about dealing with meeting those unmet needs with this surplus before we have any future conversations about raising any tax or user fee. Furthermore, our state fair, I stand with former Secretary Amy Scarton and her long-range, 10-year long-range plan. That needs to be funded. And sending a small rebate after that sounds reasonable. And a low-income fare for state fairs would be nice. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, we have Mike and then Mary.
Good morning, Chair Mullet, members of the committee. My name is Mike French. I live in Port Angeles, Washington, where I happen to serve on the City Council, so thank you for your public service. I'm going to try to pre-summarize my remarks. I'm testifying in strong opposition of SB 5769. I own a small independent restaurant, which I voluntarily closed for over a year due to the COVID pandemic, so I could stay at home and help my 2 young children with their remote learning. Thankfully, now they're now back in school, but my local rural school district is constantly under financial pressure. We have aging school buildings and an economically challenged tax base. My kids and their classmates need more support from the legislature, not less. I was so glad when the legislature passed a capital gains tax last year aimed at funding the early learning and childcare needs that we so desperately have. If you want to give back to your taxpayers, give them robustly funded public services that meet their families' needs. These regressive tax cuts harm rural areas, harm children. Please do not support this bill.
And Mary, you are the last one. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Mary Curry. I am a family child care provider in South Tacoma. What I would like to say in summary, since this is at the end, is I would like for us to understand that SB 5769 would be a step backwards as opposed to moving forward towards our future, our children. I teach dreams and I want children to experience that. I want children to experience. Children understand fairy tales, and legislative members, for us to believe that there's a hidden pot of gold and that only means an unfulfilled promise, it's an illusion of fairy tale. If we are to truly address the immediate needs of our communities, ones that look like mine, we must fund, not take away, the things that actually ensure the financial well-being of all Washington. And I will submit my testimony to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mary. And that does conclude our public hearing on Senate Bill 5769. That also concludes today's hearing of the Breakfast Financial Institutions Trade Committee. We will meet Thursday morning at 8:30. Set your clocks back 30 minutes. 8:30 start time. We will see everyone Thursday morning. Thank you.